in Uganda? Is it a place that is virgin? Is it going forward or is it not going forward? From a man who has been in this space for some time, we want to know. Stay right there, I'll be right back after the break.
It's a CEO bench, so usually people want to assume that all CEOs are overlearned and stuff like that. So I will change the script this time around. I consider myself a certified hustler.
If I'm looking to know who you are you Ugandan? If yes, what are the values that define you as Ugandan?
That's the easiest question, I think, to answer. I am a typical Lao man from Erute North, in a place called Ogur, and where I will be laid to rest is in a village called Agweng. So if you go there and you just say Otoa Tony, they won't really know me because my father is also Otoa Tony. You have to ask for Junior, and when you're asking, you have to ask with an accent. Junior Tikwene, where is Junior? And they will identify me. But I'm typically Ugandan, only Ugandan, from Lira. I pride myself from being from Lira. Earlier on, I was joking and saying I'm the coolest Lago south of Karuma. When you cross Karuma, there are so many. But when you're down the south after Karuma, I think I'm number one.
Wow. Well, now that you know Tony Otoa is Ugandan, and of course, what are the values that define you as a Ugandan?
I think it's the love for country, love for nation. You know, truth be told, the country is in a lot of, it's a crisis. Leadership crisis, economic crisis, social crisis. There's so many mismatching areas. But at the end of the day, it's home. You know, you cannot run and abandon your home because of the issues in your home. I think that then creates an opportunity for you to do something to change what's happening and what you see as a crisis. So in terms of what I see as a value, or what I take out of that for me, I think is just the love for country, the need to serve country the best way I can. And I mean, I can't say I can change everything, but the little I can do to create a difference, I think is more meaningful.
Wow. Mr. Tony Otoa, growing up, what did you want to be in life? And what was the journey like for Mr. Otoa?
Yeah, you know, my father is crazy. My father would call us and he would show me the compass. The idea was supposed to be a pilot. You know, the planes would fly over our house and my father would be like, yeah, you're going to be a pilot. But of course, as you grow, you realize that you have so many things that really define you. I was never a sportsman. So I enjoyed a lot of debate and, you know, a lot of indoor activities. And that is, I think, what really drove me into some of the things that I do up to today. Public speaking, the love for debates and really a lot of intellectual discourse and all this stuff. But besides that, I think it's also the fact that I won't lie. I didn't know what I wanted to be.
But I can hear it. You guys. When we're going live.
My name is Dr. Jinpo Olowo, Thank you for watching House of Talent Television. I love to inspire people. I love to talk about my experiences and how God has been able to use me in the different exposures. And through the leadership, through change management and transformation, I've been able to do a couple of things in my life. Now, are you a kind of person who is tired of your status quo? Do you want your situation to change? Are you tired of what is going on in your life? You know, change is a fact of life. We've all been through experiences in the last couple of months that have taken us to a place where we need to do something about our lives. We need to change whatever is going on. So if you have not piled up investment for yourself, you need to do that. If you've not done businesses to hold your family in future, you need to do that. Are you thinking of full-time employment? You need to be thinking about your life after employment or your business in the next couple of years. So if you want us to chat, if you want us to talk about this, please get in touch with us at SEAL Uganda on number 0772443085 or check our website www.sealuganda.com, or on all the social media handles. You can hook me up or Facebook, that is Jean-Paul Olowo, on Instagram, Jean-Paul Olowo, and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Then we can chat a way forward with you. We can help you, we can coach you, we can walk with you this journey of financial freedom. Thank you.
Welcome to the CEO this week. How are you all doing, and how's been your week? The CEO Bench exists to bring you some very inspiring people. For you to make it up to the top, you need to have some leadership skills, and for you to sustain yourself there, you need to have some managerial skills. And if you don't have it, then it's difficult for you to lead. And so the CEO Bench is a 45 to 1 hour to 1.5 hours television program that focuses on individuals who have made it, those who are on the rise to the top, and those who are already on the top trying to sustain themselves. We want to know from them what are the laws of the do's and don'ts, and of course the turnaround in leadership and the level of effectiveness and the failures, the successes, and all of these stories that inspire a person to be to a position that they want to be in leadership, in management. And of course, this week on the show, I bring you the one and only Peter Muzora, man of many colors. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are still bungling, as you can see, coronavirus.
True,
and
true.
Welcome to the CEO Bench, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. It's been a while, and we want to start the journey from knowing you, Peter. Who is Peter Muzora in a nutshell?
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a finance professional. I cut my teeth earlier on in my career in finance and business analysis. I love building things from the ground up. It's kind of a passion, some would say an addiction. But that's what makes us who we are.
All right. Now, if we're going to try and take you down to ancestry, the belonging. Are you Ugandan? If yes, what are the values that makes you Ugandan? Which part of this country do you hail from?
Yes, I'm a Ugandan, born and raised, born in Kampala, but originally from Kazwa district. That's our family background. Went to school here, King's College, 6 years, and then proceeded for further studies abroad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peter, we want to know from you, if somebody finds you on the street and asks you a question, are you Ugandan? And probably your question would be yes, and sometimes very intriguing, and most times you want to give somebody a punch because that's their question of your identity, of your ancestry. But then they throw in another question, says, what makes a Ugandan if you want? What are the values that define you as a Ugandan?
I think some of the values that define us as Ugandans is tenacity, for one. You find the average Ugandan runs, he has his core job and then he has like 2 jobs on the side. That's born out of necessity to survive, right?
Yeah.
We always want more. That's who we really are.
Okay.
So yes, I would rank that as being a qualifying character for Ugandans. Friendliness, openness, as you know, a willingness to interact, try new things. We're generally young population, so we're always looking out for what's next, or what's the next best thing.
Okay.
So that really defines us, yeah.
Wow. Peter, welcome to the show. Like I already said, the CEO bench exists, to basically drive us into the life that we want to be in the corporate world, but also from our private businesses or from being employed in the corporate world. Whichever side of the coin one finds themselves in, it requires that we have a leadership skill. And today on this show, we are basically focusing on leadership, change management, and transformation. And I would like to take you straight to this question. In today's rapidly very changing world, learning to lead our organization and ourselves to read the turbulence that comes with the challenges requires that we become very creative.
Yes.
And as such, critical thinking is part of the ability for a person to make very deep and meaningful decisions that either positively impact people or they negatively impact people. This show focuses on people like you who are on the rise to the top and those who are already on the top. We want to learn from you. Leadership is about inspiration, influence, encouraging people, finding a direction for people, and leading people to the top, and sustaining the course. And John Maxwell often say that anyone can steer the ship, but it will always take a leader to chart the course. And you're on the bench because you've been charting the course for a while, and we want to take you through that journey so that you can share a little bit more so that we can, get people out there who are fans and our followers and the viewers of the program to learn a thing or two from you. So I'll start from the point of journey of Peter Muzola. From school, did you ever see yourself being who you are today?
Well, I'm not certain if anyone can ever really see that far ahead. We all have plans, but life comes in, or the Lord above comes in and he has his own plans.
Yeah.
All you can do is adjust your sails accordingly. So for me, I always thought I would continue with a career in finance. That was my background, and that has not quite been the case. I found that I really had a passion for starting and scaling businesses. So I took that finance learning, that capacity to analyze a business, and also added on other aspects, operations management, branding, that kind of thing, so that I could try and make myself an all-round leader.
Okay. And Peter, many times we have our dreams when we're still young. And sometimes mentorship management comes in place where parents mentor their children to be where they want them to be, and they tend to push them to that direction going forward. Was that the case? Did you follow your father's footsteps or your mother's footsteps? What happened? Or you said, this is what I want to do?
Well, my late dad never really pushed me in any given direction. He did push me to be excellent in anything I did, right from the jump. For him, having graduation parties was not a thing, because that you were expected to
That's
graduate.
my man right there. That's my man right there.
You know, graduation was the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You know, so that was the kind of guy he was. Excellence in all fields,
Yeah.
physically and spiritually, and also in your schoolwork.
Yeah.
But he allowed me to take the direction that I best wanted, or that I was best suited.
Okay.
So yes, my parents were big influences in my life. My mom, of course, is a serial entrepreneur, talented real estate developer. So I've learned a lot from her. I still do. Our conversations are always insightful. She has a way she can see the market that is always interesting. So yes, they've been big influences in my life.
Wow. Peter, leadership. Let's dive into it. What is your understanding of leadership? First of all, what is leadership by your definition, and what is your understanding of leadership?
I think leadership is the capacity to make difficult decisions. I think it's the ability to see where you can add value, not just where your skill set lies, but where the areas that are lacking that you can plug in. It's the ability to inspire other people to go forward and achieve a common cause, not necessarily you dragging them along and saying, oh, I did this. It has to be a collective effort. And lastly, it has to be a real leader, you have to have left your team in a better position than you found them. For me, if I step away from a business and it thrives, that's a sign that I've done something good. The business should not be dependent on me to survive.
Wow. You are quite very young for you to have that kind of mindset or a frame of mind to think in that particular direction. Are you a leader yourself?
I try to be. The concept of leadership applies in multiple spheres, right? So you can be a leader in a family setting, you can be a leader in a work setting, you can be a leader in a sports setting. So in every aspect that I find myself, I generally try to add value, generally try to improve the lives of others, and I believe that that's what makes you a leader. So yes.
Wow. And if you're joining us from anywhere in the world, we are talking to Peter Muzora on the CEO bench, the man who is young, on the rise to the top, and the journey to the top is what we're talking about. And we're talking about leadership, change management, and transformation. If you have a question or comment, please drop it up there, and we will definitely be able to read it and answer it with Peter right here on the show. Peter, that said about leadership, what has been your leadership journey to where you are?
So I started my career in the US on a trading floor. I was certainly not a leader, but I was around leaders. Certainly, I was around gentlemen who had been there and done it all. So I watched and I read and I practiced, and from there I moved back.
When you said as a trader on the Wall Street?
Yes, so market analyst.
Okay.
So I did that about a year, and then I moved back, and I tried my hand at a few things. We started a few companies, and through that journey, I found that I was constantly trying to improve my skills.
Yeah.
So to date, we've been able to set up a ceramics importation company, but this also spans other interests, including warehousing and a few other things.
Okay. Yeah. I want to take you straight to the first time I first met you. Very energetic, working hard, and you were building a company called Smart Business Intelligence at the time, when you had just almost returned to Uganda, I think. What happened to that journey? There were changes. You have been to 4 different places, and we want to talk about those 4 or 5 different places today.
Yes.
Whilst we dive into the part of the show, which is change management. How do you manage change from Wall Street back to Uganda, and then from Uganda now to this company? What has been the journey like the leadership and the change management experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's always a lot of growth, right? As you go from one aspect of your career to the next.
Yeah.
So with Smart Business Intelligence, we were making accounting software for small and medium enterprises, as well as analytics for the enterprise side, so larger organizations. Now, when you do that, you get exposed to a whole range of businesses, because at every business's core is accounting. So regardless of what the business is, whether it's this media or farming or any of these diverse businesses, at the core is accounting. So having interacted with so many of these businesses, you really get a sense of what makes a business tick, what doesn't, what operations are required in order to make a business thrive. And at the end of it all, you come out with a better understanding of how to accelerate a business further into its growth.
Okay. Managing that change from Smart Business Intelligence to later on the Good Air Collective Limited.
Yes.
What was the journey like and why?
That one was a particularly fun journey.
You mean there's fun, right, at leadership level?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, any business that you're involved in has to have that element of fun. It has to be exciting.
Yeah.
You have to be creating value where there was none before.
Yeah.
And we certainly did that with a Good Hair Collective. This was a hair care company, hair and skin care.
Yeah.
Organic,
Yeah.
and this is something that didn't really exist in Uganda at the time.
Yeah.
There were a lot of companies making products that were harsh on the skin.
Yeah.
So for me, this was an opening to be able to come in and really change the way we do things. And that for me is the pull that attracts me to any business. If we can disrupt or change the way a current industry is working, that's what gets me in the door.
Wow.
So.
And I want to just ask you one more question, Peter. Lazuli Ceramics. The construction business in Uganda has been striving over the years.
Yeah.
But also the tax element of it has been striving over the years.
Yes.
Why did you venture into this business, and why did you choose this particular business over the ones that you already had, like Smart Business Intelligence?
So for me, it all starts with identifying a gap, right? So you want to find where there's a gap in the market, as opposed to finding a market in the gap. So what that means is that you have to be able to recognize that there's a need for your service.
Yeah.
As entrepreneurs, sometimes we make mistakes in thinking that because we're passionate about something, the market will demand it. No. You have to be able to look at a business and say, is there demand for this? How many active consumers are there? What is wrong about the current industry that I can fix, either on a price point or a quality point, or if you're lucky enough, both. Those were the questions that I asked when it came to ceramics, specifically on the importation side, and I found that indeed there was a gap. So over the past years, as we were constructing, or as colleagues of mine were building, we found that they couldn't find quality ceramic tiles to finish either their buildings or their homes. And the ones that were on the market were incredibly overpriced. So given that we had this emerging middle class that wanted luxury finishing for their homes, but couldn't quite afford the ultra-priced tiles that were on the market, I sought to bring these tiles in myself. And that's how it was born.
And then what was the experience like changing from that, the Smart Business to the Air Collective, and now into ceramic? These are totally two diverse areas of business.
Yes, on surface they seem diverse, but at their core they really have a lot that's in common. So the core team, right, had very similar characteristics in all of those businesses.
Yes.
You have people who are driven, you have people who are competent, you have people who are smart, and then they were all also serving a gap that was in the market. And three, they all had their fundamentals on point. So the price point was right. They had an addressable market already, and they had what you might call a product market fit. In other words, their product was ready to go to the market, and there was that
there was that fit. The market was also ready to consume the product. Yeah, with those three things in common, it was easy for me to transition.
Wow. Would you say that your exposure into the US market gave you a launchpad as a leader into thinking this way and being very analytic in the process of making decisions?
Yes, I would say so. Absolutely. It was probably a game changer for me. The range of businesses that I was exposed to as an analyst really allowed me to see how these guys operate, especially what you might call Fortune 500 companies. These are companies that have scaled from nothing and have dominated their respective industries. So all of these companies have these characteristics in common. And as you start to study their underlying portfolios, you pick up on certain winning strategies. So I was able to take those learnings and apply that in a Ugandan context.
Okay. If I have not been able to go and study in the US or in the UK, and I'm here, what advice would you give me who only stop at Makerere? Most Ugandans don't pride themselves in taking a bus to Kenya or moving somewhere. I have been to Kalere Primary School or Buganda Road to Makerere, from Makerere to MTN, and that's my world.
Yes.
Would you say that my experience is as good as yours? Certainly not. The decision-making process, certainly not. But I want to grow, and I'm seeing Peter Muzola right now talk this journey, but I don't know how to go about it. What would be the best advice?
I would say log on to YouTube University. It's why I love shows like this, because the content is available for anyone. YouTube is such an underrated tool. I mean, to this very day, I spend countless hours on it. You know, my wife will tell you I'm not much of a TV watcher, but when it comes to watching things on YouTube, be it finance or farming, I am constantly on there, and the information is free. You will go from being a novice to an expert after 100 hours of YouTube. Now, you don't have to spend those 100 hours at once, but you do this 30 minutes after dinner every night. You find that you are truly knowledgeable about a field. So it's all about the passion. You also are free to seek out mentors. Now, these mentors exist everywhere. You just have to actively go out and find them. Now, when you're approaching these mentors, you don't go to them and say, hi, give me your time, because these professionals their time is extremely valuable on a per hour basis. So you want to position yourself in a way that you're adding value to them. So it can be something as simple as, look, if in return for some training, I'm willing to do this for you. Get your coffee, whatever it takes, right? You're the one who wants the information. So put yourself in a position to add value to your mentor, and your mentor will certainly return the favor. Because at the end of the day, business professionals want to pay it forward. They had their own mentor, and they recognize that the only way you can perpetuate the cycle is by mentoring someone else.
Wow. Peter, that unfortunately is not the case many times in Africa. In Africa, we don't value very much mentorship. We don't value very much taking, going through the process. We like to value progress for process. And every time we bypass process for progress, unfortunately, we don't tend to go very far. And I just want to ask you this question. Global Shaper Kampala, what was this about? Why the journey from ceramic to there?
So Global Shapers is, it's not a business per se, it's more incidentally of like a mentorship group, right? So started by the World Economic Forum, and it just pulls together young, like-minded people, and the goal there is to try and improve our communities. So, during my time there, for example, we had a literacy project that we started in Gayaza, where I would give out books. I did mentorship training for some Makerere University graduates, teaching them on important things, soft skills like emotional intelligence, resume building, all these things that are not necessarily taught in the formal setting, but are absolutely critical in the workplace.
Wow. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Mr. Peter Muzola and I are going to be back on the show, and we'll be diving into deeply the middle part of the show, which often get many CEOs sweating. Of course, we've got the AC in the studio. We don't expect Peter to sweat, but just in case you see some sweating, you know what we're talking about, and you've been warned, forewarned, and forgiven. Again, the CEO bench is for you to learn a thing or two from those who have done it, those who are doing it, and those who are climbing up, and those who are on the top. We brought on this show rather for you some really deep thinking people, and people who have given you insights and of course on things you need to do, and we hope that you're doing it. The CEO bench will be right back after the break. This is the CEO bench with Peter Muzora and Eddie Okela.
My name is Dr. Jinpo Olowo. Thank you for watching House of Talent Television. I love to inspire people. I love to talk about my experiences and how God has been able to use me in the different exposures. And through the leadership, through change management and transformation, I've been able to do a couple of things in my life. Now, are you a kind of person who is tired of your status quo? Do you want your situation to change? Are you tired of what is going on in your life? You know, change is a fact of life. We've all been through experiences in the last couple of months that have taken us to a place where we need to do something about our lives. We need to change whatever is going on. So if you have not piled up investment for yourself, you need to do that. If you've not done businesses to hold your family in future, you need to do that. Are you thinking of full-time employment? You need to be thinking about your life after employment or your business in the next couple of years. So if you want us to chat, if you want us to talk about this, please get in touch with us at SIL Uganda on number 0772443085, or check our website www.siluganda.com, or on all the social media handles. You can hook me up or Facebook, that is Jinpo Olowo, on Instagram, Jinpo Olowo, and on Twitter and LinkedIn. Then we can chat a way forward with you. We can help you, we can coach you, we can walk with you this journey of financial freedom. Thank you.
My name is David Okwi, and I'm the shop manager here at Oduka. Our vision is really to bring technology closer to the people, closer to you, tech that you can afford, tech that lasts, tech that is durable, and tech that you can use to simplify your life. My inspiration behind starting Oduka came from the fact that I've been blogging or writing about tech for the past 10 years, but the stuff that I've been writing about has not been locally available. in the market. So what we did is, let's bring this technology to the people. So we really had to start a store, an actual store that you can order today and then have the product delivered to you tomorrow. So currently we launched with mobile accessories. Think a car phone charger, car phone mount, iPhone charger, micro USB, Type-C, charging accessories like this power extension here with 4 ports that you can use to charge your phone, as well as the other ports for appliances. We test our products and make sure that they're up to standard. We vet our suppliers. We don't just get any supplier. Other than the fact that COVID-19 has forced you to sell online, there are very many advantages why you should do that. One of the advantages is the convenience that you're bringing to your customers. 2 is that you have a wide market that expands beyond your working clients. We intend to grow, to bring more tech, to bring tech to the everyday user out there, and to bring really good tech. In order to do that, we intend to scale our product categories and to also cement our position as a leader in electronic products.
Welcome back from that break. That is the break where you get to see some people who are actually doing something more serious. That's a story from David Okwi right there of oduka.com, the e-commerce platform beginning to take shape in Uganda, and that's the space that Mr. Muzola has actually been in his last couple of years, and of course he's still in that space. And Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
We're going to this moment where we have to talk about the journey to the top. You made it as the country manager of Sokowatch. Tell us the story and the journey. How did you get there? Getting to the top to run from 0 to over 30 billion shillings. What does it make you feel like as a leader growing?
Well, the journey for Sokowatch is one that starts over 5 years ago in Nairobi as a company that was doing fast-moving consumer goods deliveries to the last mile. So this is Dukas and that kind of thing. From there, it sprawled to 9 cities across East Africa, and Kampala was one of those cities. So I joined as the country manager slightly over 2 years ago, and we essentially started the operations within Uganda. That 2-year journey then spawned quite a bit of growth. We took on a number of suppliers and were able to deliver fast-moving consumer goods to our core customers. So these are last-mile retailers, supermarkets, wholesalers, and the like.
Okay. Yeah. Peter, that's your biggest leadership position. Running a team of people in the country. Did you start with one? Were you the first staff, second staff? Just take us through the journey and what has been the leadership journey in that space?
Yes, I was employee number 1. And
so you are the driver, the office cleaner, the messenger, and all these things, the kitchen,
yeah, so obviously in entrepreneurship you have to wear many hats, right? This comes with the territory. So being the first employee, you have to recruit the suppliers, you have to source the warehousing space, onboard the delivery agents, essentially do whatever it takes to get the business up and running.
Yeah.
Up until a point where you can bring on staff to back you up. So that was the journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking of that, I mean, not everyone understands the role of country manager. When they say country manager, it doesn't come with a title of just managing small goats here and there. You're actually managing a serious business or starting something that is going to become serious. So from 0 to plus 30 billion is not a simple journey to take. That journey requires that you have a very strong leadership abilities. Your leadership abilities must determine your level of effectiveness. What were your leadership, style in trying to get the company from the moment to say now you have the mantle to roll?
The leadership, there was no one leadership style, let me say. As a leader, you have to be able to evolve how you lead based on the level that your organization is at. Now, when your organization is bringing in 50 million, that is very different from the kind of leader that is required to lead an organization that is bringing in 6 billion. Yeah. So you must constantly evolve, and you must evolve faster than the company. Otherwise, you will no longer be fit to push that company forward. So over the years, my leadership style changed based on the kind of leader that was required. In the beginning, it was certainly the kind of guy who's involved in every aspect, creating the processes, getting things on board, shipping product out the door. You have to know every aspect of your business before bringing in professionals and then entrusting them with that responsibility. So that's the first scale of leader. The second one is one who empowers the skilled staff that he has now brought in, shows them the ropes, but then also gives them the free rein, the trust to drive the business forward in their own way. Without doing that, if you revert back to the first kind of leader that you are, you find that you're a micromanager. And you then become the greatest.
Which is quite a number of
yes, exactly. Which
the style we have here in Africa, quite a bit, yes.
So that makes you an actual impediment to the business.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, you have to keep evolving your style as the business keeps scaling.
So those were two: trusting people, responsibility. It's not very easy for one to give responsibility or to entrust people with responsibilities when they are growing up the business, particularly when the business is a cross-border business. But you are in that space. Yeah. And up until the day or 2 yesterday, we realized that you have moved on to the next level, which we're going to talk about. What was that journey like when you finally get to that point? Because leaders in Africa are not very good with trusting other people's responsibility. I do it all, I know it all. Most of them. It's quite different until when you go out of Uganda, is when you start to see how people think, how people are doing things. That's when you start seeing. And if you fly out of the African continent, it's a completely different ballgame altogether. They are brought into this leadership space from a very early childhood. Now, what was that journey like for you? That moment, that hour, when you felt like, now I need to hand it over to this team. I am now competent enough. What are some of the things that you have to tick in that box for you to let that responsibility go and entrust them with responsibilities?
Well, one, I'll say it's never easy. As an entrepreneur, when you start something from scratch, you feel that ownership, right? It's almost like your baby. And you're kind of afraid to let a child go on its own. But you have to, right? Because you have to trust that the people that you've brought on are highly competent, otherwise you wouldn't have hired them in the first place. And they share the same interest, the same passion that you have to drive that business forward. Now, when you know you've assembled a team that truly shares your vision, it becomes easier because you're all reading from the same script. You all want the same thing for the business. So in that sense, it's easy for you to show them their roles and allow them to then drive the business forward in their own way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peter, that journey is not easy. I have been training many business leaders from my daily place of comfort where I sit as a consultant. And most business managers will hire people to come in, talents to come in, but will always want to make decisions. And that is very synonymous with Ugandan businesses and African businesses. That said, was that the case in your area, that the proprietor of the business, was he giving you the space to think, or you always have to, it's as if you're not going, it's as if you're going, it's as if you're not going, that moment when you're supposed to make a decision for you to be measured based on the decision you've taken, to say, yes, you took this decision. Can you defend your decision? Can you, as a leader, say why you decided to pick this course of direction, not the other?
Yes.
Did you have that leeway?
Yes, and it was really one of the things that attracted me to join the company in the first place. So, you know, within the company, we had this policy that the best idea wins, whether it comes from the CEO, whether it comes from the cleaner. If the idea is valid, if the idea is sound, then we are willing to hear it. So when you have that kind of open sourcing of ideas, then you find that you're constantly evolving faster than the competition. But when the idea comes from one source, then you're always going to be limited to how exposed is that person, how refreshed are his ideas. It's not scalable, especially if you're looking to dominate an entire industry or an entire continent. You constantly have to be able to source ideas from everyone around you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's go to what we called building an environment that allows everybody to strive. And I want to take you to this set of sort of like measurement, which often is meant to give you, our viewers, what this program is all about. Combines very simple intellectual rigor with personal challenge, collaborations with creative expressions to give people a mind and a space for them to think and to learn. Peter, that said, the viewers of this program must engage with very integrated mind maps to sort of like understand the organizational and leadership development from an individual who has appeared on this show, as well as instantly applicable practices of becoming very effective person as a leader growing up or thinking of that process, and very dynamic as an individual or as a collective. Starting with is transformation and change. How do you manage transformation and change from all these levels?
So
from where you started, you know, up, down in the US, down here, you've been, this is your 5th company, and you're moving, and you've made it to the general, country manager, which is fairly a very big position compared to many people, yes.
Yeah. So change management for me starts within, right? If you're trying to go from one level to the next, you have to ask yourself, do I have the skills necessary to make this happen? Am I able to add value in this new space? When I enter a room, am I in a position to take the information from those mentors that will be in there and apply it and improve my game to a level where I'm on par with those very people? That for me, change management is an internal thing. Before you look at anything external, you have to constantly be willing to challenge yourself.
You as a person.
Exactly. You have to be willing to learn more, read more, interact more. That's how you find that your mind is more flexible to new ideas, and you approach the market in different ways. You see things differently. You start to see them as a leader as opposed to someone who was maybe looking for a paycheck. With constant reading and interaction and introspection, you just become better at your craft.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to tell us, when you do that, you started from self. How does it then transcend to your journey in managing everywhere you have moved?
Yeah.
There was change.
Yes.
How did you manage it?
One, you know, it starts with trusting your team. If you find that there's a change in the marketplace, you have a new entrant, a competitor, for example, you need to assess why is it that that competitor was able to come in. So why are the barriers to entry in your business so low that someone feels that they can come in and eat your lunch? Fix that. 2, fix the processes that you have internally that might be allowing for these weaknesses, that might be allowing for these gaps. This could be in terms of your product. This could be in terms of the delivery. Are you shipping it out fast enough? Is the quality of the product up to par with what the market expects? Is the pricing on point? Or is this new guy going to come in and undercut you? All of these are things that you can really look at and see where you can improve. And then once you feel like you've fixed the issue, go out and meet that competitor head on. That's how you manage change.
Okay. Yeah. What about from the staff, the personnel point of view? When change is always happening, people tend to have a very different idea as to why the change is happening. And every time you are leaving the company, we want to know from the personal journey, from what informed your decision to say, I'm now moving on from this one to the next one to the next one. What are you looking for as you move?
For me, it's always growth. I need to be able to feel like the next step that I'm taking is adding another level. It's challenging for me. It's allowing me to impact more people. It's allowing me to contribute more, add more value on a larger scale, and to build something that's going to have an outsized impact that outlasts any of us here, right? And that impacts far more people than we can impact individually. So that's what attracts me to the businesses that I choose to take on.
Okay. When you're moving in these journeys, do you communicate? We're going to the learning organization. Learning organization means, and what we're looking for here is that when you are leaving this organization, you've learned a lot of things from here. When you're moving to the next organization, you've got to learn so many things as you learn into that place. What has the journey been like? Some can tend to be very challenging. Others, you can enter the job and you find out that the way things are run inside is not necessarily how it looks outside. How have you been able to manage this as a person?
So yes, you're right. You can find that the company culture is very different from what you as an individual considered. Now, in Uganda, oftentimes you can find a scenario where the employee, especially if he's coming in at a junior level, is at odds with what the company culture is. And this is because we don't really do training on these soft skills for our young graduates before they enter the workforce. So this young graduate will enter this corporate environment and find that there's this strict culture of promptness, of service delivery, of timekeeping. You do what you say you're going to do, and you do it on time. So we as professionals in the business really have to take a step back and ensure that these young graduates come into the workforce with these skills. Because they're not going to get these skills in the universities right now. Those are just not being taught. So that's why programs like this exist. That's why I'm a big fan of them, to offer that kind of mentorship. Now, when you're in the organization and you're onboarding these young people, you have to clearly state what the culture is. Because at the end of it all, culture is a function of what you allow, what you don't allow, right, and what you let slide. Now, you have to define very early on what you're going to let slide and what you're going to stop. And if you keep that area gray, then anything will pass in your company, and that will be the end of it. So you have to define your culture early on, and you have to ensure that anyone coming from the outside in gets inculcated, like they get in and they understand it. It's critical that everyone from the CEO right down to the bottom knows what's non-negotiable, knows the core values, and lives by those core values. Where possible, you also interview for what we call a culture fit. That is where you assess from the jump whether this employee shares the same values. Does he have respect for everyone else? Does he have a core appreciation for the work that you do? If you don't share those same core values, then chances are very high that that individual won't hack it in the organization.
Okay. That said, Peter, levels of leadership development. What has been your level of leadership development over the years, given your experiences of steps moving from A to point B to point C to point D?
So the level of leadership development that I've been involved in, I mean, I would say that it's constant. You're always learning. For me, that's something that just never ends. You know, the work that we did in Global Shapers exposed me to, you know, leadership positions, mentorship positions specifically. Even under Soko Watch, we would frequently take time out from our calendars to ensure that we are constantly learning, and also mentoring the younger guys, making sure that we take time to speak to each and every one of them. So for me, it's a constant thing. It never ends. And the minute you think you know enough is probably the minute that you stop being an effective leader.
Well, you've heard that coming from Mr. Peter Muzora. We're going to take another break. And of course, when we come back, we'll dive into the transformation part of it. But also, we want to know from him, Throwing the towel and soccer watch, does it mean it's going up? Does it mean it's going down? What awaits Peter Muzola along the way, and where is he headed? And of course, we want to talk about the change and the transformation in the e-commerce space in Uganda. Is it a place that is virgin? Is it going forward or is it not going forward? From a man who has been in this space for some time, we want to know. Stay right there, I'll be right back after the break.
The private sector is not yet fully utilized because not everybody can be employed by government. And we are looking at a future whereby more people are employed in the private sector than in government. So I think if we all work hard, if we all work together and invest in the right areas, there's been a lot of talk about value addition in the agriculture sector, in the mineral sector. If there is enough investment in those areas, I think it can create enough jobs for our children and grandchildren.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to take you to question number 4, Andrew, which is, let's talk about your journey at City Hall and the foray into the Executive Director's office, which is as Andrew Chitaka,
Very
as
interesting.
well as the Director Engineering.
Very interesting. I joined KCCA on 1st November 2011. And before then, I was
for so much.
CEO
of whatever. They give so much.
This is the reason why you're actually on the bench.
Because of my credibility. Thank you so much. But now they attack you, they vilify you. And the goal is to weaken you financially. Is to weaken your honor. These are slanderers. So I'm glad that someone would stay up at night to ask and learn about me. And I pray that in the next 2 months, because I know many Ugandans who travel overseas, when they go there, one of the things, because the media has been so much, and Sam Kutesa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, has really not done a good job. He has dropped the ball on this issue. Why? So many of us are being accused of being gay killers, including me. You've just heard that person. Uganda is being accused that we kill gays, which actually is absolutely untrue. And because of this, it has affected our tourism. It affects people who go overseas to do work or study. It affects whenever you go to a conference. Hi, my name is Eddie Okiela. Oh, where are you from? I'm from Uganda. Oh, you are the gay killers. And then you begin to describe things. So one of the things that I've done is I've written a book, which should be coming out. I know that I keep saying the same thing, but the work of doing a book takes a long time, and I wish I could be supported. You know, many people who write on this subject, like Sylvia Tamale, she's supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation. There is money.
Is a very big brand, and as we go on, we will probably discuss the things we're trying to do to see that things change for the better.
Good. Sean, on the CEO bench, for everyone who is following, we're live on our YouTube studio where we actually stream from. So YouTube studio, for everybody asking for a link, is actually House of Talent Uganda.
Confident in themselves and what they are offering. I think that's the biggest problem. Like, women will easily settle for a less pay than men would.
Mona Onyeto goes on to say, or I think it's a comment, says, I didn't know that beauty products are taxed at 60%. Whoa.
They are. I pray that changes soon, but they are.
Okay. So with that challenge of 60%,
setting up the company, you're doing tours all across the world. You know, a personal account is great, but how these things are taxed becomes important for you know, for your business later on. As soon as you cross that threshold of 50 million a year, you know, you're now in
the interest become more share.
Yes.
Welcome back from that break. This is the CEO Bench. My name is Edio Kela, and in the studio is Mr. Peter Muzora, who is the former country manager of Soccerwatch. The man is on his way out of that place. Was he fired? Certainly not. Did he resign? Yes. Where is he headed? What's the next plan? Is he going to replace some people in certain areas, the sector of e-commerce? Is a question Peter will have to answer. Peter, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Before we went for a break, we talked much about the levels of leadership development. Now, we want to talk about practice for transformational leadership. You're transforming from one place to the next.
Yeah.
Every time we hear that somebody's leaving, there are three questions that come. And Ugandan streets are very good with speculations.
Yeah.
We speculate a lot, we say a lot. You're moving out of Soccerwatch. Where are you headed to, and why are you moving out? Have you outgrown the organization? Are you leading with the transformational practices hitting you and saying, I've outgrown the place, I need to go to the next level? Where are you headed? Are we seeing you upsetting Jumia, top level, or one of those places? Yes.
Yes, it's a great question. I think, you know, from the journey that we've had from inception to this point, it's been a fantastic one. It's been very fulfilling. But ultimately, there comes a time when you feel like perhaps it's time for a new challenge. You know, there's so many other sectors, so many other aspects that you'd like to dive into that I hadn't really had a chance to do that over the last few years. So, you know, while the journey has been incredible and, you know, very, very enriching, I learned a lot. I think it's time for me to explore new avenues. That's why I made the decision.
Wow. So the new avenues, meaning you are rising to the CEO position now? Going backward?
I mean, the goal is always progression, right? You don't want to regress, and you certainly don't want to go sideways.
Okay.
So it's always progressive.
Okay.
And for us, as entrepreneurs, me at least, it's all about creating value. So I'm attracted to areas where I can add value, where we can build things that didn't exist before, where we can disrupt existing industries. So that's how I'm viewing the lens of the next organization that I'll be joining.
Okay. Peter, transformation of a leader is very important, as well as the transformation of the place where you've been. Leadership dictates that we influence people. And when we influence people with the view of changing them who are followers to becoming leaders themselves and becoming better people tomorrow. And like we often say, it takes a leader to chart the course, but anyone can steer the ship.
Yes.
Have you left the ship of Soccerwatch in a good place, or anyone is just going to steer the ship, and when it comes to the docking point, the ship will crash in Uganda?
I believe it's in a strong position, certainly stronger position now. For me, as I'd mentioned earlier in the show, the traits of an effective leader is one whereby if you remove that leader, the organization still keeps driving forward. It's an indictment on me if I'm the single entity that is driving that organization forward. It implies that I don't trust the colleagues around me. But if we've been able to assemble this team and they've each contributed to driving the business forward in their own way, then I am very happy to allow them to continue to take that business forward. So I have every confidence that the company will go on to do even greater things.
Okay. So you are saying, in short, that you have not left us where we're going to, crumble.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Well, you've heard that one from Peter. Let's talk about personal effectiveness and resilience. As a leader, you are headed, obviously, from what you've said, to the top.
Yeah.
I don't see you stepping back even one step. You said you're going forward. In Uganda, we say, Tetuda Merega, Tugenda Maso. It means we're going forward, we're not going back. The resilience to go to the top is not easy. The climbing to the top is not easy. The next assignment is not easy. There's a huge difference between management and leadership.
Yeah.
A leader is the one who leads self and find meaning in leading self, then appoint himself or herself to be worth enough for others to see value in him or her, to lead them. That's very key. That's a leader. Whereas a manager maintains the status quo. Management is about maintaining status quo. This is where you found us. Please maintain the mess that we're in. That's what it means.
Right.
Where you're going, there will be expectations. How resilient are you if tomorrow you end up at Jumia as the CEO, for example? What would be your first 100 days action as a man on the top?
Well, the first 100 days for me in any organization it centers around analysis. What are the current processes? How are they operating? Where are the gaps? What can be fixed? So you don't want to be one of those guys who comes in and makes a lot of noise just to be seen that they are doing what. Yes, I'm here, so you must go. Yeah. No. That does nothing for the motivation of the team, and you need the team to be willing to follow you in your new direction.
Okay.
So leading with fear is never an effective strategy. You want to inspire these people to follow you willingly and to achieve the goal that you've set out for them, and to achieve it and to believe in it, right? So that it's their goal now, not just yours.
Yeah.
Now, when it's shared in that way, then you find that you're able to achieve your objective that much faster. So for me, it all starts with analysis. Understand what's wrong in the organization and where can you fix it, and how do you dominate, how do you fix it so you dominate the space and become the #1 player.
Okay. So what would you say, Peter, about these leaders who show up in the organization? The first thing they have to make their presence felt by either showing that I'm now the new boss here, so please, this is how things are going to go. If you don't like it, please resign. And often it seems to be, in our context in Uganda, in African countries, seems to be the model of leadership style that we love so much. And then we also don't love to hand over to somebody else. We want to hold on to something. We also don't like to mentor people.
Right.
You are now rising to the top. What are your thoughts on those, what we call organizational culture? The levels of organizational development, creating an agile organization that one can follow tomorrow when you're not there. Yeah. What are your thoughts? If I'm looking at you or watching you on television like right now, and I'm there anywhere in the world, I want to pick that bits and pieces from you that I can use going forward. I've been stuck in one place, but I'm seeing Peter Muzora, who is under 40, rising to the top, and me who is 40, I'm still stuck. Or me who is 20, think it is just very easy. Has it been easy for you? And what are your thoughts? What would be the best advice for that person?
I guess, the best advice that you have to constantly invest in yourself. You have to constantly keep reading, keep learning, whether it's YouTube or Google or whatever, keep exposing yourself to the right material, so you become an expert in your field. That's how you keep adding value, no matter what level you're at. You have to put in the work. There's that 10,000 hour rule that states that you have to consume 10,000 hours worth of information before you can consider yourself an expert. So that tells you that it's all about the learning. On the earlier question you had raised about
the organizational culture.
Organizational
What
culture.
culture would you want to live when you get there? and then to the level of organizational development that you would want to take wherever you're going.
Yeah.
And lastly, creating an agile organization. If you combine those things, what would be?
Yeah, so you want a versatile organization. You want one that adapts to challenges that come in without necessarily panicking or losing track of the objective. Now, the only way you can do this is by hiring people who are smarter than you. Now,
Peter, if you hire people who are smarter than you, will you succeed? But yes,
I mean, there's generally a fear around that.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't know how to do what we call managing up, right? They struggle when you're talking to your subordinate and somehow the guy has a better point than you. Then you get scared,
yes.
Or you feel intimidated as a leader.
Yeah.
No, you want every discussion to be one in which your employees are seeing the gaps, hopefully before you do, because that's why they're there, right? To anticipate these problems and to call them out. Now, if you surround yourself with yes men or people who are not proactive, your organization is not going to move forward as fast as you'd like it to. You must surround yourself with the absolute best talent, and that means how you manage that talent is critical, right? It cannot be through fear, it cannot be through demands, because you're now dealing with intellectuals who are on par with you or probably even smarter than you if you do the hiring right. Yeah. So you must do what we call leading from the back. You have to, one, inspire these guys to follow your agenda, and you have to give them the skills that they need to lead in their own right. That's how you have an organization that stands the test of time.
Wow. Well, this show is coming to the end, and we want to ask Peter, first of all, you are a business management professional. What does it entail for a border man on the street? After all, Soccerwatch been dealing with low-end people, what we call the base where goods and services end, or where product ends. It's consumed there, it's finished at that level, it's done. What would be your best advice and a definition of business? What does it entail? What do I know? It's just this man is a business management professional. If I called him here, isn't he not going to just shut my business down?
Look, all of us, if you're in business, right, if you're an entrepreneur, then you're in business management by default. If you're not managing your own business, then you're not. Every single one of us, I'm sure, has an innate understanding of the business that we're running. Now, to really call yourself a business management executive, you have to be on top of all your numbers. You have to know every single aspect of your business. You have to know where your gaps are, your weak spots. You have to be able to know who your competitors are. You basically have to be able to analyze the entire market from a bird's eye view, from a very neutral, non-partisan perspective, so that you can always anticipate the problems before they come up and stay one step ahead of the competition.
Wow. Peter, is e-commerce in Uganda still alive? And is it going anywhere, or is it overrated? Or is just simply the case we don't understand it very well? We simply see a lot of people posting things on Facebook, on YouTube, and on websites, and then very nice product, and then you say, okay, product is nice, how much is it? Then you say, inbox me.
Yeah.
This has been a question going on. Why would you put it down and then you say, I inbox you? So yes, you have been the country manager now going of Soccerwatch, and you've dealt with the up market, the low end market. Are we overrated, or we don't just simply understand what e-commerce is?
I think e-commerce is extremely underrated. I think we've barely scratched the surface of what e-commerce is in this country.
Yes.
It truly is the last mile, when it's the final frontier when it comes to how we buy goods, and it's here to stay. that aspect of it is not going away anytime soon. Now, being in the early stages, there are mistakes that we make. So that price transparency that you mentioned, it's a pet peeve of mine. You know, you log on, you see something you like, and because the person is trying to assess your profile, he doesn't want to give you the price. We have to do away with that, seriously, as Ugandans. Like, no. It's almost like you would go into a restaurant and then the waiter covers the part of the menu that has the price.
That has the price and say, first order.
Based on how you're dressed, it's ridiculous. Understand your price, right, as an entrepreneur. Set your price based on the cost of production and the average margin for the market, and go with that price. So we are just beginning, in my opinion. There's so many aspects of e-commerce that have knock-on effects. So through e-commerce, there's aspects of financing, especially for the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs that are involved in e-commerce oftentimes don't have access to formal financing. You know, through e-commerce, there's knock-on industries that are built up, logistics, especially third-party or last-mile logistics. So e-commerce really is a tool to transform the way we do business. We know that about 60 or 70% of our GDP comes from small and medium enterprises, and these guys are involved in commerce. That's exactly what they do. So shifting that platform onto the internet, right, is really the most efficient way to scale that and get that into as many consumers' hands as possible. So I'm a big believer in it.
Wow. So thank you very much, Peter. You are basically saying that this whole idea of price discrimination should stop. It's either we're ignorant about what e-commerce is, or we are aware of what it's supposed to be, that when you put the product out there, put the price so that I can make a decision whether to buy it or not to buy it.
Right.
But not to say, inbox me for this price. Right. And that has been a big problem here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Peter, your last word to us today. What would be the top 3 takeaway from here, from your lesson learned going forward, that you would leave it with us if I'm watching you? What should I take from you today?
I think as entrepreneurs, you know, we're all passionate about our businesses. I would say invest in yourself, right? Invest in learning as much as you can about your industry. Seek mentors out, and make sure that that you're surrounded by them. Invest in the market. Make sure you're putting out a quality product. Much as you expect the market to pay you, make sure that you're giving as good value as you expect to get. And lastly, pay it forward. You know, find those entrepreneurs that are struggling. If you've made it to a certain level, there's always someone who's the level below you. Seek them out, give them the tools that they need, and allow them to pay it forward. Our generation is one that is, you know, on the cusp of achieving incredible things that our parents could never have dreamed. But we can only achieve that if every single one of us is paying it forward and putting out quality into the market. And giving fair value.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you for being part of the show today. The parting shot from me, you either answer it or not, but if you are the CEO and your board asks you to bypass a certain process that you see is not good for the organization and not good for you, would you do it? And if you do it, would you suffer the consequences?
I mean, as leaders, you're always going to be put in that position, right? So you're always going to be faced with further growth, probably at the expense of the process, right? Because you're always seeking that next level of growth. So you always have to ask yourself, is this growth worth it, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And oftentimes the answer is no. The minute you abandon the same processes that got you from 0 to 100 is the same minute, that's the exact same point that you fail to make it to the next 1,000. So integrity is everything. Stick to your guns, no matter how hard that seems. It always pays out.
Okay, so you're saying don't squeeze the juice, basically. That's what you're saying. All right, we've come to the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Muzora, Eddie Okila. We're signing out from the CEO bench. Until next week, please drop us a comment. Kisses and disses are all welcome. And we promise to bring you back Mr. Peter Muzora when he finally becomes the real CEO. He's a man on a growth, he's a man on a step, and anytime he will make it to the top. And when he gets to the top, we want to bring him back to you here so that you can ask him a lot more questions about what was the journey like to the top. And when you rise to the top, how do you sustain yourself there? Thank you very much for being part of the CEO Bench, Growing Big and Better. Next week, we promise to bring you a very amazing guest. We've only had 3 females on the show, and the votes are always counting. Please keep your votes coming. If you know somebody and you want to nominate them, the CEO Bench is all about content. You don't have content, we can't bring you to the show. But if you have content, we will always bring you to the show. And we go by the nomination. So thank you very much, all the people in the diaspora. 1.8 million people growing, we thank you. The 18,000 people on Facebook, we want to say thank you. Please hit the subscription button right there and be a part of the House of Talent TV, Growing Big and Better. And of course, the CEO Bench family, where we only interact with CEOs. So please, if you want to rise, reach out to us, nominate that person, and we will bring them to the show. Until then, Peter Muzora, Eddie Okila, signing out. Oh, we got a toss. Aha. Thank you very much, Peter, and looking forward to the next, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
In recent years, music has become the most important art form in Iceland, and apart from the classical musicians and singers, we have very many well-known pop musicians like Björk, who the whole world has fallen in love with.
My calling was folk music. I've been a folk artist, and that is what I'm still doing. I started by being an apprentice of the late Dr. Albert Sempeke.
Kampala Capital City Authority, the entity appointed by the Parliament of Uganda to be responsible for the day-to-day operations within Kampala, the capital city in Uganda, has over the years embarked on various initiatives and projects to better the living conditions within the city. One main area of focus for KCCA is water and sanitation, especially in vulnerable urban poor areas.
I'm Alan Koronziza, and I'm the program manager for the citywide inclusive sanitation program in Kampala. Kampala is a city of over 1.5 million residents who double during the day to over 3 million. Out of those 1.5 million residents, we found that 1% of those actually don't access any sanitation facility whatsoever. So they commonly use methods like the flying toilets that I'm sure many of us are aware of. We also found that the majority of the residents live in informal settlements. Actually, that's about 60% of the city's residents live in informal settlements. These are settlements that are not planned, These are settlements that are congested as a result of that. These are settlements that have limited access to basic services and utilities. We also found that when these toilet facilities fill, over 50% emptied the contents into the environment untreated. And a similar percentage number just abandoned the toilets altogether, and because of space constraints, actually joined the group that didn't have any access to toilets. And when we looked at what happens to these toilets when they are filled up, that was also another telling story. We found that only about 23% of these facilities get emptied safely when they are filled. So what that means is that we have a whopping 67% of our waste from these toilets that is either stuck in the communities where we live, or that is emptied or disposed into the environment untreated.
Yeah, my name is Senablia Francis. I'm the head teacher of St. Peter's Primary School in Zambia. We are actually very grateful to Kampala Capital City Authority for having identified us to have an improvement of sanitation in this school.
KCCA identified fecal sludge management as a key area to focus on as far as water and sanitation is concerned within Kampala.
Before we got the assistance from KCCA of sanitation, we had toilets, and these toilets were insufficient because we had 29 stanzas in all. So when KCCA came in to help us, we were able to get more facilities. In fact, the number came to 82 stanzas, 56 for girls and 26 for boys. These include also urinals. We also had a benefit of adding more facilities of washing hands. And our school was the pioneer to have a unique facility we call the wash-a-lots. And these facilities reduce on the use of water because very little water comes out when somebody is using the facility.
In a typical scenario or a traditional sense of the service, the way the service is accessed, we had communities that didn't have any information at all about how to access sanitation facilities, where to get them, and who would provide them. And for the communities that did, they reached out to one key member within their communities who then linked them to the service providers in the communities.
We went detail about Weyonje. The facilitators were good. They taught us what is Weyonje. We went as leaders so that we bring the message to the community.
Last year, KCCA initiated the Weyonje app as a way of improving sanitation service delivery in the city. Members were given out smartphones and we started using that app.
So with the GSMA funding, we've been able to invest in mobile-based applications that help to link communities with the service providers. The same applications help the service providers know how they are delivering the service so they can actually increase their efficiencies. And the same mobile applications help KCCA understand where is the service being provided, where is it not provided, so that KCCA can reallocate the resources to the areas where the service is not being accessed very well.
Okay, we've got a new job and is having a septic tank with a flush toilet.
KCCA has taken a number of steps to address this sanitation challenge, which include, but not limited to the following: the setup of a call center to provide information to population, and secondly, to link them to service providers. And now, with active involvement of the private sector-led interventions, things are looking up. And it's not just KCCA's commitment to a better Kampala and the strategic partnerships that is transforming fecal sludge management issues within the city.
So what we're seeing over a space of 1 year, when we've started this approach of using the technology to actually address this service chain, is we were seeing a 20% increase in the amount of fecal sludge that is actually being evacuated from the communities. So we're actually seeing more toilets being emptied. We're seeing more service providers actually being employed or called upon to provide these services. So this GSMA funding has been very, very critical. It has been very helpful in actually tightening or linking that part of the service chain and ensuring that a citywide service is actually being delivered.
The whole program, I can range it, it has been a success by 95%, because initially we were operating in a very informal way. Everyone was in his own. So we got trainings, we started companies. After starting companies, KCC and GIZ started also to legalize the sanitation business. Now members have licenses, have acquired KCC environmental service permit. They have recommendation for national water that actually every fecal sludge you collect, you have to dispose it at its facilities, and the NEMA license, which is the last license that is required in rendering this sanitation business. So the whole process, at first we saw that maybe KCC has come to kick us out of the business, but we were far short-sighted. But in the due course, in the process, we saw that KCC want to shape our final destiny in this sanitation business, because we are given the priority such that we can comply with the city rules and regulations. If we fail, then they get other people to come and take over sanitation in the city.
Yes, please.
I know it's the coffee break, and as we're having the coffee break, we need to make coffee first.
Yeah, sure.
And then we can enjoy our conversation. Here's water right over there, and then what are we going to have today here?
We are going to have a French press.
A French press. Yeah. Well, I think most of you, if you've been following the show, we've had a French press being taught to you how it's made. So we won't delve too much into it. So Ibra will make the French press as we moving on with the show. So Ibra, how good is Ugandan coffee? Like, how do you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
1 to 10. For now, since we are in the second position in Africa, our coffee is really doing good on the market, and on the world we are 8th. Yeah. So still our coffee is doing good, just because very many farmers have put in enough efforts to produce good quality coffee.
Does it always start with farmers?
It always has to start with farmers.
Because, I mean, I could be a business person, but I want a certain cup of or type of coffee, and I can't grow that coffee because I want it. Does it always have to be like, you farmers have to do this for me so that I can come to get this best coffee, whether it's best or bad? Does it have to be?
Yeah, it has to be. You know, just like when you're trying to raise a kid. So the future of the kid will always be like, okay, like the way you raise a kid, it will have to reflect how the kid will be. Yes, just the same way with coffee. The way you grow the coffee, it always reflects in the cup, whether bad or good. So you have to put much attention in the garden so that you can have a good result in the cup.
There we go. What's the right or the most important stage of coffee, like in the coffee production? Because the fact that we are second in Africa behind Ethiopia, it means we're doing all what it takes to have the best coffee. So what's the most important stage in coffee?
It's the farm.
The farm?
Yes.
I mean, you're making coffee right here. Why isn't this important?
Let me tell you why the farm. If a farmer just grows coffee and harvests anyhowly, even the green, the red, everything. So up to that point of processing, to hulling, roasting and all that stuff, up to the cup. Trust me, this person who is going to enjoy this cup of coffee, once he or she finds a defect in this cup, trust me, the whole point will go back to where the coffee is coming from. So there will be some kind of traceability. So if, let's say, if an American guy came into Uganda and be like, can I have this cup of coffee? And that cup of coffee tastes bad, be like, where does this coffee come from?
I mean, we're ranked number 8, so why does he even have to ask where it comes from? Because we have the best coffee.
Yes, we have the best coffee, and we are trying to produce more.
At
more
least
coffee.
to be in top 5, not in the top 10. So, go on.
Yeah. So, if this person has a very negative attitude or a negative perspective towards a cup of coffee, this will be like, now Ugandan coffee is totally bad. So this cup of coffee will represent the whole coffee in
the world,
in the country.
In the country.
Yes.
So Ibra, let's bring this to our coffee shops.
Yeah.
Deep down, like Wild Coffee, you go to coffee shops like Coffee at Last, Enduro Coffee, wherever you are watching us from, there's a nearby coffee shop around you.
Yes.
If you go to that coffee shop and you enter into that coffee shop and you don't get any kick of coffee, like there is that kick that comes along with coffee when you enter, just like the one I'm feeling, the kick of coffee right now, the one I'm going to take.
The aromas.
Yeah. So does it mean that that coffee is bad?
No. When you don't feel that aroma from the coffee by the time you enter into a coffee shop, you have to find out what's in the cup. Yes. So you can go ahead and order for a cup of coffee and take it. Then from there you can go ahead and ask, in case it's all allowed, be like, what coffee am I having? Where does it come from? How is it processed? Like some few questions about the coffee, so that you can also get to know the coffee that you're taking. Yeah.
So you made this French press right here, and I just want to know about it just a little while.
Yeah.
Why did you leave it to first set over there, not pouring direct into the cup?
The cup. You know, brewing, if you really want to have a very, very nice cup of coffee with all its content, it's a time-based process. So there are factors that are considered when brewing. One, brewing is a time-based process. We follow time. Look at the measurements. In simple terms, ratio. That's the coffee to water ratio. Yes. So I'm leaving it to stand here for it to brew, like to extract all the required components that I should find in my cup. Yes.
So guys, I'm with a senior barista here, and today I'm gonna do some cupping with him. It's called a blind cupping, right?
Blind cupping, open cupping, yeah.
So we're gonna do this cupping of this French press coffee right here. So isn't it ready to be taken? Because I can't wait anymore. I want to have my coffee.
No. I personally, I love experimenting. Yeah. So this coffee, maybe briefly, I just blended different kinds of coffee and different roast profiles. Yeah.
Wow. See how it's being poured. Hello guys, we still are watching the coffee break here on House of Talent TV. So we're streaming live on Facebook as House of Talent Uganda, and also on YouTube as House of Talent Uganda. And get engaged with us on Twitter at HTV Uganda, so that we can get to know what you're thinking about the show. What do you think about this topic? Is Ugandan coffee that good? And before we move on, we get to taste this coffee and we'll see how best it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let me take my sim. The first thing I'm getting is cinnamon.
Yeah, this coffee is so spicy. Yeah, so spicy. It has some kick of a citrus note, like orange-like. Yeah.
So why is it that everyone who talks about coffee is talking about citrus, lemon, orange? So you're also talking about the same thing. Are they like the best things we find in coffee?
Actually, I try to follow up on the common or the basic flavor notes that are in Ugandan coffee. depending on the way they are processed. Yeah. So specifically this coffee, I did it like intentionally to blend 2 coffees of different roast profile and 3 coffees of different processing technique.
Okay.
Yeah. So this coffee has 50% of honey processed coffee, medium roast, and the other 50% is a blend of washed Elgon with natural Robusta.
Wow. I talked about the SL14, SL28.
Yes, yeah.
What's SL to our viewers watching over there?
SL, it's a kind of a variety, Arabica variety that was designed in Kenya by a Scottish lab technician. Yeah. So he named the variety.
What's SL for?
SL, it's a Scottish lab.
Scottish lab.
Yeah.
When do we go to Uganda? Ugandan lab.
By the way, the beauty with Uganda, since I'd say to be the birthplace of Robusta, which is a credit to us, and when you look at the Robusta cupping protocols and the Robusta score sheet, it was designed in Uganda at Uganda Coffee Development Authority. So we own the credit that whatever you do with the Robusta, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in Guatemala, anywhere, as long as you're cupping Robusta, you follow the cupping protocols that were designed in Uganda, as well as the cupping score sheet of Robusta that has our UCDA logo on it.
Okay guys, we're going to take a short commercial break, but in a minute we're going to be having a break while taking our coffee. See you in a minute.
Welcome to this year's edition of Doa Doa 2021.
We have revived the King's Entenga music.
I started playing music when I was 9 years old in 1945, and up to today, I'm still learning it.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and in the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Okay guys, welcome back from that short commercial break. It's still the coffee break with me, Amon Mokisa, right here on the House of Talent TV Uganda. And we're streaming live both on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Get there, share with us what you think about the coffee break show as we are discussing the topic, is Ugandan coffee that good? Because being ranked the 8th in the world as the most growing country and the 2nd behind Ethiopia in Africa, that means a lot. We have to talk more about this, and I'm still with Ibra right here in the studio as we're having our coffee right here. Ibra,
yes.
So we're still, before we went to a break, we were talking about the coffee in this cup.
Yeah.
I want to know, what do you take to consider that this coffee is good?
It's good. One, you look at the flavor profile of the coffee itself. look at some other attributes like the body, the acidity, the sweetness, and the balance. Yes.
So that's the flavor profile?
The attribute part of it. Then the flavor, that what flavor do you get? What other unique flavors? Because there are some other common flavors that you get in the coffee, like the chocolate, the...
In simple terms, like what's like the flavor profile for our viewer watching out there and is not well conversed with like coffee terms?
Okay.
Yeah.
A flavor profile is like that sensation that you get that reminds you of a certain thing. Let me say, look at the fruit. The moment you grind a certain coffee, you get that fragrance that hits you back at your mind. Like, okay, it smells like jackfruit or smells like banana. So it's a flavor. Yes.
It's a flavor. So what flavors do you get as you're taking your coffee? If you're in a coffee shop or you've made your coffee at home, what flavors do you get? Share with us on our the social media handles. And basically, you can also tag me on Twitter so that we can have this conversation at Amoni Mukisa right over there and tell us what you get when you take that coffee. On the show, we shall be having Ronnie Muhumza, the CEO of Clear Cafe Uganda, to elaborate more about the coffee and why he thinks Ugandan coffee is good. So look out for that segment that will be coming along in the show. So Ibra,
yes,
there are many myths in coffee. For example, you hear about coffee is bad for your health. You know, so when we have very many myths like this, don't they affect the quality of our coffee and coffee consumption in Uganda?
Well, I think the myths that are running out like about coffee, I think they don't affect the quality of the coffee, but the consumption rate.
The consumption rate?
Yes.
Because I mean, if someone is saying I have I get headache when I take coffee, because I've had our cameraman here say that when he takes coffee, that's headache for him the whole day. So that's already a negativity, positive, a negative attitude towards coffee, which means whenever he goes somewhere, he will say that the Ugandan coffee is bad. Whenever I take it, I get this.
So one thing I would tell people that don't compare yourself to the rest. You know, everyone has his own way of reaction towards the caffeine in coffee or the coffee. For example, the way you react towards caffeine is different from the way I do. You get? So if you take coffee and you get headache, that's your own reaction towards the coffee. Doesn't mean that it's bad. It's because the body is trying to react and stabilize. That's what I can say. Yeah.
I mean, you've done biotechnology at Kyambogo University.
Yes.
What are these campus institutions doing for us at least to have the best coffee in Uganda?
Let me start with a coffee club in the institutions. The reason as why I think the government, by the aid of Uganda Coffee Development Authority, are setting up coffee clubs in institutions so that they can encourage the young blood into the coffee industry, because it all starts from down. Yes. So biotechnology, it's a very wide part as far as coffee industry is concerned. Look at agronomy part of it. Look at breeding. Right now we have a new modern technology of breeding coffee, like the tissue culture. So it's all biotechnology. Look at the molecular part of it. Designing hybrids, designing varieties. So it's all about biotechnology.
I mean, I've seen you post more, because I follow you on your social media handles, I've seen you post more of coffee varieties, like coffee trees, coffee beans, and you talk about them. Are there specific coffee varieties that we do in Uganda, and that's why we're having like the best coffee?
Yes, we have different varieties in Uganda. Let me talk about the original Bugiso. The original Bugiso, Nyathaland, it's in regions of Mbale mostly, yes. And we have SL14, we have SL28. We have some farmers around the Elgon, like Sipi, they have Batian, but it's still under study according to the survey that I've done. Yeah, the Batian variety. Then as you're trying to cross over to Kenya, just at the border. Some farmers that do share the land with Uganda and Kenya, they have Rui 11 or Rui Roman 2. Yeah.
Wow, that's the information that you need to know when you're watching the coffee break. And then let's talk to Ronnie Muhumza, the CEO of Clear Cafe. Hey, how are you doing, man?
I'm very good. How are you, man?
I think we shall get back to Ronnie. It's just a technical problem, but we're still moving on with the coffee break on House of Talent TV, and my name is Amun Mukisa. So, Ibra, let's talk about the coffee in the coffee shops.
Yes.
What does it take for someone, for example, he owns a coffee shop, to say, I want to go for this coffee profile, I want to go for this type of coffee?
Well, it all starts with the standard of a coffee shop. So a coffee shop owner should have a standard that can guide him or her towards where he or she's going.
These coffee standards, do they include the baristas, the coffee graders, the cuppers, to guide this person? Because it's a business, yes, remember? Yeah. So someone will come out and say, I need this type of coffee because it's this much in terms of amount. Like, for example, I have to get coffee whenever I need it and it's cheap. Does it go along with that, or it comes along with the guidance that's coming through the the baristas, coffee cuppers, graders?
Yeah, about the standard, you're supposed to know, like, I'm getting into the coffee business, which is a coffee shop, and I want to deal or specialize in coffee, let me say. So you are supposed to know the type of coffee that you're going to deal with. You can go ahead and look at the roast profile, the baristas themselves that are going to brew this coffee. Yes. Are they equipped with more knowledge? Do they know what they're doing? And are they willing to convince a client to take this cup of coffee? Yes.
Okay. All right, we're having Ronnie is back again. Ronnie, how is it in coffee shops or in Clear Cafe? What terms do you take, or what advice do you consider to buy a certain type of coffee?
Well, for me, coffee is like one of those drinks that are conversational, you know. So for me, first and foremost, I want my barista to have the knowledge of the coffee he's selling, and you know, the blend, you know, the acidity levels, and the roast, where the bean is sourced, how it's washed. And then if someone has enough information like that, it gives me confidence to order for a cup of coffee. Plus, for me, like at my cafe, I love coffee, so I pay attention to details.
Who takes more part in making a decision to have a type of coffee in these shops? So do you think you're always biased when you're deciding to buy a certain type of coffee?
Yeah, sometimes when the barista doesn't know what he's talking about, or when I ask like a simple question, where do you source your coffee from, and they don't know, for me that's for example, it's a turn off for me. But again, because I'm a coffee lover, I'm a coffee taker, when I drink coffee, I know this is good coffee, this is, you know, bad coffee. So yeah, I think these are some of the things to look out when you're having a cup of coffee.
I'm saying, what type of coffee do you use in your coffee shop, and why did you decide to go for that coffee?
Oh, okay. So we have our own house blend, but it's majorly Arabica coffee. because Arabica coffee has it has many, the texture, the citrus in it. It's not as bitter as Robusta. In my coffee shop, I use Arabica, has that sweetness in it. Again, we love coffee. It depends on who takes the coffee, but for me, I wanted that sweetness in the coffee, that natural sugar in the coffee, and Arabica has that sweetness in it, and that's why I use Arabica coffee. Plus, I do the roasting. We roast our own coffee, so we just came up with our blend, and yeah.
Us today on the coffee break, and we look forward to having you on the show some other time so that we can talk more about the coffee business. That's been Ronnie for you guys, and Ibra, Ronnie here say that he has a certain type of coffee that he uses in his coffee shop. Yes. That the type of coffee also has an influence on someone to buy it in that coffee shop. He talked about the sugars in the coffee.
Yes, yes. Yeah, actually, the type of the coffee also plays a part in convincing someone to take that coffee. Okay, this is what I realized. Most coffees, the way they showcase their uniqueness, attributes, and the flavors, it's like a marketing strategy for this coffee to be bought by a certain client. Yes.
Okay, with 80% of coffee in Uganda being Robusta and 20% being Arabica, we're going to come back after this short commercial break, and we shall be talking about the types and differences of these coffees. We shall be right back.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Prince.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. You're still watching the Coffee Break on House of Talent TV. Where are you watching us from? Please let us know so that we know where you're watching us from. Are you in Canada? Are you in the USA? Are you down here in Uganda? Let us know where you're watching us from, and we shall make a shout out to you. We thank you a lot for having tuned in to House of Talent TV, and we're still talking more about coffee. We need to know, is Ugandan coffee really this good to be the 8th in the world as the most growing country, and also to be the 2nd in Africa behind Ethiopia? I'm having Ibrahim Chiganda, senior barista at World Coffee, speaking more about the benefits and how good Ugandan coffee is. Ibrahim, before we went to a break, we talked about the types of coffee beans or coffee types.
Yeah.
What are the differences between Arabica and Robusta?
Robusta. Well, I'll talk about the country of origin where these coffee types originated. For example, Arabica came from central plateaus of Ethiopia. When you look at Robusta, came from the western and central sub-Saharan Africa.
Hold on. You said Arabica came from Ethiopia,
yes.
Central Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And Ethiopia is the first growing country of Robusta in Africa.
First growing?
Because
no,
we are the 2nd behind Ethiopia.
Yes, in terms of producing
Robusta coffee.
Robusta?
Yeah.
It's Arabica. Yeah. I think in terms of production, we are number 2 after Ethiopia. Yes.
Okay, so how can I differentiate that this is a Robusta coffee bean and this is an Arabica coffee bean?
Then an Arabica coffee bean, it's ovalish and long. A Robusta bean, it's bold and big.
What do you take as the best bean amongst the two? Is it Robusta or Arabica?
Arabica.
Arabica,
yeah.
why?
Because it's okay. I love Arabica coffee. Yeah.
So let me ask you: if you love Arabica and we're growing 20% of Arabica, or we're producing 20% of Arabica, where's the Robusta going? Is it among these 2.4% export that we make?
Actually, we produce more Robusta and we export more Robusta. So we consume less Robusta.
Why?
I think it's because of its bitter component, as well as, of course, the consumption rate. Very many people are not really so enough informed with coffee. So they know that I'm starting up this kind of coffee just to grow and export. That's all. That's the end.
Well, as we grow in coffee, or as that farmer down in Bukisu, down in Rwenzori, down in Masaka is growing this coffee, how easy is it for him to choose that, let me grow this coffee, let me grow Arabica or let me grow Robusta?
I think it's very easy for him to decide depending on where he is located.
Okay.
A person in Masaka, Luero, those are low altitude areas. So a Robusta coffee will do well in those regions. So a person in Mbale, Kasese, those mountainous areas, yes, you can do Robusta, but it won't give you that much yield compared to the person growing the Robusta in the central.
So speaking about the Erigon region, which is the altitude around 1,800
to 2,200.
Yeah. So which means the longer the altitude, the best the coffee that comes out.
Remember, these are 2 types of coffees that can grow in different environmental conditions. Arabica can survive well in cold places. Those are the mountainous areas. Like the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. The coldness will prolong the growing time for the Arabica, hence maturation of the what? Of the sugars, flavors and everything in the coffee. So the coffee will take long to mature, but you have better quality, like very mature and good coffee.
But if you to set up a coffee shop, which coffee would you decide to use? If you're in Uganda right here.
If I'm in Uganda, actually I will go for both.
Okay, now you're doing a blend, like the CEO of Clear Coffee, Ronnie Mohomes, said they do a blend. What happened to doing single origin coffees?
Well, to my own understanding, I think single origin coffees for the people that are into specialty. You really want to get more details about this coffee.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking about specialty, to my understanding, I think specialty is like how we determine the best coffee.
Actually, very many school of thoughts have come in describing or redefining what specialty coffee is. Leaving along how it scores on the cupping score, like 80, 85, going upwards to 92 or to 100%. Yeah.
Okay, specialty coffee for you who's watching us, if you don't know specialty coffee. Specialty coffee is that type of coffee when it's graded or when it's cupped, it scores 85 and above.
And it must have less or minimum defects.
So the defects you're talking about, if you're taking like this cup of coffee and you taste something that's not good, that's a defect, right?
Defect like earthy, smoky, taste.
For you who's watching us, if you taste your coffee and you feel like, you taste like it's earthy, it's, what's the other term one?
Potato flavor.
That's a defect.
Undesirable flavors or flavors that you get like, this coffee is bad.
This coffee is bad. Read through your comments a little bit on Facebook. We have Saddam who is in Dubai watching us right now. He says, having the best coffee in Uganda makes me proud. And the fact that I am in Dubai, it gives me a mileage so that I'm recognized as a barista who's making the best coffee in Dubai from Uganda. Actually, these people make coffee which is sourced from different areas. They get coffee from Guatemala, Burundi, Rwanda,
Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda.
Which is a bad thing in Uganda because we're only using our coffee. Even the coffee we source from out there is not that good. They give us that premium coffee because we don't want to incur the cost. Is that the reason why? That we don't want to buy the best coffee down here from other regions?
Beg your pardon?
Like, is it because we're not buying this best coffee? Because we all know Brazilian coffee is good, Guatemala coffee is good, Ethiopia coffee is good. But we don't want to buy the best quality of coffee so that we can compare it down here in our coffee shops in Uganda. Is it because it's too expensive? Or we just don't want to incur that cost?
One is, okay, those are foreign coffees. They're very expensive, if I'm to say. Okay, like for our case as Wild, we source, we have foreign coffees. We have coffee from Rwanda, we have coffee from Burundi and Congo. So when you look at this person bringing this coffee close to you, he or she is putting in much. Remember, taxes, those few costs that come in. So by the time a bag is processed, roasted and everything, it's very costly.
All right, Ibra, I want you to look into that camera and tell that farmer right over there, tell that business person right over there, how they should make sure that we are in the top 5. We want to leave the top 10.
Top 10?
Yeah, and
top 3. Top 3.
What they should do to have the best coffee in Uganda?
One,
and the world at large.
Attention to details when growing, processing the coffee. Yes. Make sure that when you're growing the coffee, give it all the best that you can. Give it manure, prune it, dissect it, like take care of the garden very well. When it comes to harvesting, harvest only the red ripe cherries. Why? You're going to get good quality coffee at the end, and you're going to secure the other unripe coffee so that by the time you finish up with this load, you'll have another coffee to harvest rather than stripping. Then another thing, processing. I would advise farmers in Uganda to do more research or to consult people that are so well informed, experienced with modern or new technologies in coffee. Like I personally, yes, I did biotechnology and I'm not working in this research institutes and all that crap because I really want to cause an impact with this biotechnology knowledge into the coffee industry. For example, processing the honey processing, fermentation part of it is a very, very key point in processing coffee.
Okay, Ibra, thank you for coming through on the coffee break. It's always a pleasure having you on the coffee break. Well, guys, it's the discussion that we need to carry on our Twitter handle, that's at House of Talent Uganda, and also on our Facebook. Let's keep the engagement coming because we need to make sure that we stay in the top 10. Or we need to go in the top 5. We're already in the
top 3. Why am I saying top 3? Because as I was watching those World Barista competitions, there was a guy who came to Uganda, CP Falls, and sourced Ugandan coffee, and he used it in the World Barista competitions.
Wow, you can imagine how our coffee is going far and wide, worldwide. That's why we are ranked as number 8. Alright guys, we thank you for having joined us today on the House of Talent television. This has been the coffee break, and my name is Amon Mukisa. I'll be seeing you next weekend. Have a nice weekend.